Well, hello guys, welcome back to the channel. I've been getting a lot of emails the last 6 weeks from guys in America, Australia, Germany, Canada, saying that they can't wait to come here. They've booked their ticket, and they're asking all these questions like, Mark, is there still apartments available? Have the prices gone up on rent? Things like that. And they're concerned that there'll be this huge flood of people coming here and they won't be able to find a place to stay and prices are going to skyrocket. And local people saying, hey Mark, stop doing videos and telling everybody how nice the Philippines is. We don't want it to get crowded. We don't want thousands of people coming here. Well, you don't have to worry about that happening because it's not happening. Between February 10th, when the country opened up, and March 10th, approximately 7,000 tourists came to the Philippines, 7,000. To put that in perspective, in 2018, 2019, on average, 580,000 tourists would come to the Philippines every single month, over 7 million a year. And so that has been shut down completely, 100% for the last 2.5 years. And everybody thought, the government included, on February 10th, there's going to be all these people coming here. And they're not. And now I'm hearing from guys, they're saying, I checked into it, it's just too much to go through, too much hassle. I'm going to go to Mexico, I'm going to go to Cambodia, I'm going to go to Vietnam, I'm going to go to Cambodia. I'm just going to stay where I'm at. You got to understand that a lot of these guys, these expats, and that's who I'm basically talking about now, is guys like me, expats. They're senior citizens. They don't like a lot of hassle. The reason that many of these guys over the years came to the Philippines, it was so easy to come here. You know, for me, it's like I booked the flight, got on the plane, came to the Philippines, showed my passport at the immigration. They stamped it for 30 days. I've been here for almost 3 years. Very easy to renew your visa down at the immigration office, pay a little fee. You can go 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. And it was so easy. That's the reason people came here. And it was also very inexpensive. It's still inexpensive here, but we're seeing inflation just like you are in your country. Gas prices have gone up a lot, like 40 cents a liter in the last 2 weeks. Food prices are going up. Electricity is going up. But a lot of guys, I think the majority of guys waiting to come here, the ones, at least the ones that have communicated with me, are anti-vaccine. They're not vaccinated. They're not going to get vaccinated. And a huge percentage of the guys that are already here and have been here, some of them for years and years, are also anti-vaccine. I'd say 50 to 60%. The other day I was at breakfast in Valencia, table of guys there, and I think probably 90% of them were not vaccinated, because I know them, they're not vaccinated. And I think that's true with these guys that are still waiting to come here. They were hoping the Philippines would open up like Mexico and Colombia and these other countries that allow you to come in and not be vaccinated, and maybe you have to quarantine for a couple weeks, but that's not the way it is here. You've got to be vaccinated. You can't fly anywhere if you're not vaccinated, even enter island to island now. That's the new rule. And I think that stopped a lot of people from coming here. And you look now at the Philippines, and it hasn't really seemed like it's changed that much over the last 6 months. There's still hardly any expats here, you know, compared to what it was when I first came here. And they're not coming in. I see a few new faces. I've had some guys contact me, had coffee with them, had lunch with them. And it's nowhere near what I expected because of all these guys were telling me they were coming. And now they're saying, well, you know, Mark, it's just too much. You know, I don't want to buy health insurance. And the health insurance, that was something they threw in at the last minute. Thailand's got the same thing. It has to have a minimum of $35,000 US coverage for COVID if you acquire COVID while you're here in the country, which is a huge amount. I mean, you could be in the hospital for months and not pay $35,000 here. But technically, you're supposed to keep that insurance the entire time you're here. So if you're moving here permanently, technically, you're supposed to keep that insurance paid up and in place the whole time you're here. And Some people paid a lot of money for their insurance. Like I mentioned one guy the other day from Australia who's 72 years old, and he paid $450 for him, for his insurance for 1 month for 30 days. Another guy I talked to was in his 30s, he only paid $60 for his. So it depends what country you're coming from, where you buy your insurance. But it was one of those things that for a lot of guys, that's the tipping point. That's the final straw. It's, well, I would come here, but I'm not going to buy health insurance. I'd rather self-insure, or I'd rather take my chances or whatever. I'd rather buy PhilHealth when I get there. And they just don't want to do it. They don't want to throw that money away. Because if it's, say it's $200 or $300 a month, that's your rent. That's how much guys are paying for rent here. And the reason they're coming here is it's so expensive. So if all of a sudden, on top of your rent, you've got another bill every single month for $200 or $300, that's just too much. And the anti-vaccine is a big thing, because technically in the Philippines, according to what Duterte said, you're not supposed to leave your house if you're not vaccinated. You could get arrested if you're caught on the street and you're not vaccinated. Now, they're not doing that. They say a lot of things here. They have laws here that they don't really enforce, but that is technically the law. And so I think a lot of guys have just given up on the whole idea, and for now are not coming here. So I don't expect to see more than 7,000 in the month of March or April or May or June. It's going to continue to be this tiny trickle of people, which isn't going to be enough to turn the economy around. This pandemic has just destroyed the tourism here in the Philippines. You can imagine dive resorts, hotels, all these places, are going bankrupt and losing money, and it's just going to keep getting worse. And I really think the Philippine government has kind of, shot themselves in the foot here. If they just opened the country up and threw open the doors like it was before, I think these guys would come back. I think the tourists would come back, and it'd give this huge influx of money into the country. But right now, the way it is, they're not going to do it. And the same thing with these COVID tests. I think these are the biggest scam around. It's like, you get a COVID test, all it tells you is in that snapshot in time for that moment, you don't have COVID for that moment. But you can walk out of the office where you got your COVID test, get on a bus or get on a taxi or go into a mall and walk right by somebody, touch something, breathe something, and all of a sudden you're infected. And so it doesn't prove anything. It's just a total waste of money. And people are paying a lot of money for these too. I've talked to guys that paid as much as $350 for a COVID test. And they're giving them at the airport, they're ripping people off. Now apparently, depending on what country you're in, you can get them free or real cheap, but a lot of times, when you're traveling, all the stuff you got to do, especially if you're going to another country, you plan on staying there. I mean, you're really busy in the 4 or 5 days leading up to traveling. So now you got to go find a place to get a COVID test. You got to wait for the results, get all that done. You got to fill out this S-Pass thing online. You got to have that, the Health Pass thing online. You have all these things you got to do. And you've got to get all this stuff organized before you leave. And it makes it very stressful. When you're talking about senior citizens, they get frustrated really easily. And I've talked to guys, so Mark, I started the process, I booked my flight, but it's just too hard to fill this form out, or I can't find health insurance, I don't know where to get it. And they just give up. And I think thousands and thousands of guys have just given up. And they may just decide to do something else. They may just decide to go to Mexico, go to Colombia. They may decide to stay where they are and just tough it out. And so I don't really see anything changing unless the government changes this whole thing. And it seems like the Philippines is behind other countries like America. Here in Florida, like everything's wide open right now and has been for months. And same with like other countries like Sweden and Norway. But here, we're still wearing the mask everywhere, and that's another thing. A lot of guys hate wearing the mask. They say, well, do I still have to wear a mask everywhere I go? Yes, you do. You got to walk around the mask on everywhere. And if they're coming from someplace, like say they live in Florida, where they don't have to wear a mask, and they're saying, I don't want to go back to that again. I don't want to go to move to a country to be free and save money when all of a sudden I've got all these rules that we had before. And I think that's just a lot of guys aren't going to come here. And I think the expats, if they keep things the way they are, we're kind of like a dying breed. We're going extinct. There's always going to be a handful of us here, but these guys die too. They're older guys. We hear guys that pass away all the time, or they get so old and feeble they go back to their own country. Things happen to them, and there's less and less all the time. I think there's less, foreigners actually living here in this island, Dumaguete area, Valencia, Bakong area, than there was, you know, a year ago, 2 years ago. And it's getting less all the time, because I know guys that have left for various reasons, and some of them aren't coming back. And so it's less and less. So we're kind of like a dying breed here. Like, that might be good for the ones that get to stay behind because they've got more choices of apartments and things like that. But, you know, the cost of living is going up here too. Just like in other countries, gasoline's gone up, food's gone up, electricity's gone up. And so the Philippines, for a lot of people, is not as attractive as it was, you know, 2-3 years ago. So we'll see what happens. It's kind of a shame, you know, because I really think if they just open things up, I don't know if they'll ever get back to, you know, 500,000 visitors per month, but I think they could definitely get it up to, you know, 100,000 a month if they just open things up and make it easy and do away with the masks, maybe even do away with the vaccine requirement and the COVID tests, and people would come here. But anyway, that's kind of the way it is. Once again, if you do decide to come here, look me up. Happy to meet you, have a cup of coffee with you or lunch. I'm staying for now. We do want to travel this year and go someplace. We're not sure exactly where, but Jen and I would like to travel a bit outside the country. And so I wish you guys the best. In the comments below, you know, tell me what your experience is going to be. I've got some more interviews coming up, by the way, with guys who just got here, and we'll find out what their experiences are. I know for a fact that some of them had an easy time of getting in, and other ones it was a nightmare. So it kind of depends on where they're coming through. So those interviews are coming up. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. If you're subscribed to my channel, I really appreciate that too. Thanks a lot.